Hari Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. We often talk about doing our best and living up to our potential. And the scriptures have found a very inspiring way in which we really can bring out our full potential. In the next verse of the Hanuman Chalisa, Dhamopakara Sugriva Ekina Rama Milaya Rajapadadina, it introduces the character of Sugriva, even though the verse is talking about how Hanumanji brings the character of Sugriva to meet Ramchandraji, and in doing so, Sugriva has his heart's desires fulfilled. But when we see the relationship between Hanumanji and the Lord, Sri Ram, and Sugriva, who he used to be the minister for before that. So Hanumanji starts as a minister for Sugriva in the army. And during that time, of course, he was noble, he was brave, he was well respected, but we don't hear any amazing feats. And from the moment when he meets Ram, we hear so many stories about Hanumanji lifting a mountain and crossing over the ocean and destroying demons. And he becomes so much more of a hero after he meets Ramchandraji. And so we see this. We see that when we dedicate ourselves to a higher cause, it brings out our potential much, much more. Pujya Gurudev Swami Chinmayananda used to refer to Mahatma Gandhi when giving this example, saying that Gandhi started off as just a lawyer. In South Africa, nobody knew him. It wasn't anything of any significance. But when that same lawyer, who's so incredibly small built and may not be much to look at, decided to fight for the freedom of the nation, he became the father of the nation and inspired not only Indians, but the world over. Till today, he's probably very often quoted by people from all corners of the world. I would have been in high school when a new restaurant had opened up in Melbourne, and it got so much attention because it was one of the first in Melbourne where there were no prices on the menu. You could go along to the restaurant and you could just eat and leave and pay as much as you wanted. Or if you didn't want to, leave. And I remember there was so much discussion about it that, probably so many people would just abuse this and they would go and they would not even pay and it would be a free meal, and how would they even sustain themselves? And the novelty of the concept definitely got everyone's attention. And in more recent times, I'd heard the person who came up with the idea give a talk about it. And interestingly, these restaurants do fairly well. Their concept is, if you give people a sense of responsibility to do the right thing, most people will live up to that responsibility. And so you find that in this restaurant, most people pay slightly more than what they think the value of the meal is, because one, they don't want to give less, even by mistake, or two, just for goodwill, the noble cause that of trusting people, even that's worth supporting. And so giving people the responsibility brings out the best in them. When we tell people or put them in a situation where they required to, they will raise to the occasion. When people work for themselves, sure, they are motivated. Who doesn't want to earn more and be better? But when we work for something greater, higher, then we far more motivated. So many a times I've sat with fathers and they've narrated the story of, newly married and then the first kid came along. And that's when they really pulled up their socks and started paying attention to how much money is coming in and how well they are doing in their career, and even started paying attention to how they spoke or their habits, like they would quit smoking and start exercising, spending more time with the family, because all of a sudden it goes from being about me to being about this child. And each parent would naturally want the best for their child. And so I would want the best for me, but the best for my child becomes even more than what the best for me was. And so their standard gets immediately raised. Their potential gets more tapped into. But my child is still me and an extension of me. If we grow even larger to community projects for welfare of society, for noble causes, that sense of responsibility grows, and we have to dig even deeper within our being to bring out the best. I teach children on a regular basis, and now more than teaching children, I teach teachers to teach children. And over the years of doing this, I have seen such amazing transformation. The people that come in are volunteers. They're usually mums that feel this is a worthy cause and inspired by it. They come in to help out. And very often they start off so unconfident, they're unsure, they will say things to me like, I don't know anything, I don't know if I'm the best person for this job, but you need the help, so okay, I'm here. And as the year passes, not even years, just that 1 year passes, you see this person gain so much confidence. And as they get into the service of this group of kids, of passing down the knowledge of the culture, they become empowered and they become dynamic. And so they might have not been professional teachers to start with, but they do amazing jobs with being able to raise the standard of how we teach and communicating and bring in innovative ways of making it fun and creative and artistic. And without fail, usually they come to me 2 or 3 years later saying, I don't know if the kids have really benefited, but I have learned so much. And I've not just learned the content of what I'm teaching the kids, I've learned so much about myself. And I think I'm a far better person for it. And this is always true. Anyone taking up something that is not selfish, it brings out the best in them in a way that would be very different if we were working for something that is selfish. And it's a principle that we see irregardless of age. As I mentioned, when working with kids, if I've ever given a kid a responsibility of a younger kid or a project, or even the responsibility of reminding me to do something later on that day, that kid excels. They become so much more than what they were even an hour before. The minute we give in something noble to work towards, we most definitely excel. And so we see this theme in movies all the time also. Usually our hero is some average man doing an average job, or an average high school kid walking around, and then crisis comes along, something huge and threatening to the entire group. And in the movie, it's usually that the world's going to end, nothing short of that. And then suddenly our average Joe Blow turns into someone who can run incredibly fast and shoot the villains and get the girl and save the world. And the movie works on the principle that is true. When we work for something higher, we tap into infinite potential. And so we might not learn how to shoot the gun, but we certainly able to learn new skills that help do whatever is required. We're able to face our fears and sometimes conquer them completely. We're able to find a great sense of fulfillment within ourselves. When we're working with just ourselves, no doubt we do well. But when we're working for something higher, we do much, much better. and are much happier. Think about it.